We should finally be wrapping up section 6.3 here. So I guess this is the continue version, and we're looking at the very difficult problems, very more difficult. Not really that there's going to be anything extra stepwise, just that there are more of the same steps. So the problems are just going to be a little bit bigger, or like with this one, that there's a hidden trick that you need to try and see. So when you're trying to add and subtract fractions, right away to the top of your head should come common denominators. That's what you should be thinking about. You should think about factoring the denominators to make them match, etc., etc. Except for you should also be looking ahead on a problem and trying to see where this is going to go, not just randomly following a set of steps I gave you. You should be trying to understand and see what's going to happen. So whenever you see something like x squared minus 16 and 16 minus x squared, little warning lights should go off because that just seems kind of strange. Now, your warning lights aren't always going to be correct. Sometimes you got to go through the work, but here there is a shortcut. Because these two things are basically the same except all the signs are reversed, we've dealt with this before. If I just factor a negative out of here, that would make them match perfectly, right? So I could get x minus 7 over x squared minus 16 minus x minus 1 over negative 1 times x squared minus 16. So I both changed the signs and I switched the way I was writing that second fraction, so I get x squared minus 16, makes them look the same. This is also where it becomes important where the negative signs are at. So you've got this negative here, but that's the same thing as having the negative sign out in front of the problem, right? Doesn't matter where you write it. You could have also put the negative up top if you preferred that. It's all the same thing. And then you realize, well, if I have two negative signs, two negatives make a positive. So putting all that together, I went from having a subtraction problem with unlike denominators to having an addition problem with like denominators. Quick and easy if you see it. So all you have to do now is combine together the tops and keep that common denominator. And then the last thing, and this is always something that you should have to consider, worry about, think about, and that is trying to simplify the problem. Even if you haven't really had to factor it to this point, you could have to factor now. And it's definitely worthwhile to think about it, because otherwise, if you miss that right there, you're going to be missing quite a few points on the problem whenever I grade it. I expect you guys to think about factoring, think about canceling, until you get a fully simplified answer. Okay? Part B, we have 3 fractions. So there's not really any extra steps, anything I haven't talked about yet, but there are going to be more of the same step because you have to get common denominators, but now you have to get it for 1, 2, 3 different fractions. Okay? Starts off in the same spot though. You try to factor everybody apart, recognizing difference of 2 squares. So you get x minus y times x plus y. And realizing on the others you can't really factor it, so you're just going to keep it the same. And then, usually with a problem this big, the common denominator won't be terrible to figure out. You can multiply by x plus y here, and multiply by x minus y here, and that will make the denominators all the same. Don't forget that if you do the bottom, you have to match it in the top, like so. And then you have to multiply the tops all together, so that means you have to do it 3 times for this problem because there are 3 separate fractions. Not a lot to say here, so mostly just recopying everything, multiplying through the 2 and then multiplying through the 1. And then realizing you're just adding and or subtracting here, so you're going to try and combine them all together. So let's think about adding together all the numbers, because that's the first fraction I've got here. So we've got 3 plus, there are no numbers, so plus 0, minus, again there are no numbers, so minus 0 gives you 3. over the common denominator. Let's think about the x's next. I'm just picking things here. You need to put all the terms together, so I'm just going with numbers, then x's, and then we'll talk about the y's. So there were no x's, plus 2x minus x is a total of one of them. Then you think about the y's next, so there are no y's, there's 2y here, and you're subtracting a negative y. Make sure that you're still thinking about that negative applying to everything. So 2y plus another y is 3y. And unfortunately my neuroses here, I have to write everything in order, so I've got the x, and then the 3y, and then the 3. But as long as you've got those same numbers, it doesn't matter which order you write them in. Over the common denominator, think about if you could factor it. This polynomial does not follow any of our rules on factoring, so right there, you're done. That's all that can be done with the problem. So there you go. There is the more very difficult problems. Ask questions if you have them.